What's going on, everyone? Hockey Time here, back for another week of NHL Power Rankings, the first week of Power Rankings post the trade deadline. Just a few weeks left of the regular season, which means just a few weeks left of these rankings. Hopefully, you guys got to tune into one of the panels or at least watch some recaps of the trade deadline. If you haven't watched mine, I did upload a pretty brief one yesterday, so go check that out. But nonetheless, let's jump right into the Power Rankings. It wasn't one that had a crazy amount of movement in it. I think the biggest jump was 6 spots, and the largest drop was maybe 4. I do anticipate there being a lot more movement next week now that the trade deadline rosters have been solidified and teams really kind of settle into what they are or what they aren't, I guess. But jumping right in, number 32 this week, dropping 1 spot, are the San Jose Sharks. Now, these guys had a pretty rough week, 0-2-2. They're 1-7-2 in their last 10. Just all in all, a pretty shark-like week, and just edged out by the number 31 team. They move up 1 spot, and that's Chicago, the same two teams that have been wrestling for this 32 spot really all year long. The Blackhawks 1-2 on the week. They're 2-6-2 in their last 10, so just marginally better than the Sharks team, enough to move them out of that last spot into number 31. Number 30, this team drops a spot as well, and it's Montreal. They go 1-1-1 on the week. It's not the worst week by them, but there's one team that just jumped above them for the amount of wins they got. Montreal is also 2-6-2 in their last 10, so it's not been a great stretch out of these guys, but not terrible, just kind of leapfrogged by the team ahead of them. And that team ahead of them being number 29, the Arizona Coyotes, just moving up the 1 spot, flip-flopping with Montreal. These guys are 2-2 on the week. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10. This was not a team I ever really anticipated being this low on the board for this kind of length of time. They were a team that earlier in the year was kind of wrestling with, hey, maybe we can make the playoffs. And now, of course, that is nowhere near in the discussion for the Coyotes. So it's good to see them at least go 500 because that stretch of 14 losses was ugly, and seeing them this far down the board was a bit surprising considering the start they had. But this is where they're at, so it kind of is what it is. They move up the 1 spot this week to number 29. Number 28, and this team drops a spot as well. It's the Anaheim Ducks. They actually had a decent week, 1-2 by their standards. It's not the worst, and they are 4-5-1 in their last 10. So again, by Anaheim Duck standards this season, not the worst. Just in general, not quite enough to stay over one team that's jumped a couple spots this week. But another team that's dropped due to pretty bad week is the Ottawa Senators. They also moved down 1 spot, 0-2-1 on the week, and 3-5-2 in their last 10. It looked decent for a while there for the Senators. They had started to pick up some momentum, playing some pretty strong hockey. The goaltending was at least keeping them in games. Now, not so much the case. The Kevin Fiala goal that they gave up in overtime against the Kings the other day is a perfect example of the team just not really playing all that great defensively, and then a puck that Jonas Korpisalo probably had to stop and just doesn't. So, tough week for the Sens for sure, and as a result, they drop to number 27. Number 26, a team moving up 2 spots that had a really solid week, 3-1-0. They're 5-5 in their last 10 for maybe the first time all year, and that's Columbus. They've had a really good little stretch here. 3-1 on a week is probably their best record over any stretch of time in these rankings during the season. So good for them. Good to see that positive momentum. We'll see if they can keep it up. Again, they probably don't want to win too much. They probably want to stay closer to the back of the pack to give them the best shot at Macklin, Celebrini, or another really elite level pick that they can. But they will take some positivity. They'll take some wins. They move up a couple spots to number 26. 25, and this team drops just 1 spot. I had a tough time dropping them because I think they've been playing decently lately, but it is the Buffalo Sabres. I'm recording this after their game today, which was a wild one. Of course, that game against Edmonton does not count towards these rankings, but the last week was not all that great for these guys. They are, though, making a push, I think, for the playoffs. So we'll see whether or not that's going to be something they're capable of doing. They're a ways back, still just passing Pittsburgh as of today. And again, that game does not count toward these rankings, but I don't think they're completely out of it yet, which is pretty miraculous considering the god-awful start to the year they had. So some decent progress from Buffalo, but some teams leapfrogging them that I just could not keep them up in the third row. Another team that both has a pretty bad week and gets leapfrogged is number 24, the Pittsburgh Penguins. They moved down 3 spots, 1-3 on the week. It was not good from a team that's supposed to be really in the fight for the playoffs. This team has looked slow. They've looked out of it. The trade deadline, of course, the emotional loss of Jake Gensel to Pittsburgh, and just all in all was not a good week for the Penguins. They are 4-5-1 in their last 10, and again 1-3 last week, culminating with a massive 6-0 loss to Washington, and then again last night to, oh wait, no, it's just a loss to Washington, I think, right? I think. Anyway, Yeah, not a good week for the Penguins. Hopefully they can rebound if they really want to stay in the fight this week, but we'll see what happens there. Last week did not do them any favors in that regard, and they dropped 3 spots resultingly. Number 23, and this team stays in the same spot as the aforementioned Washington Capitals, just 1-1 on the week, 6-3-1 in their last 10. They're not out of it yet either. Uh, Again, both these teams have kind of some runway to take up if they want to really get themselves back in. They're a handful of points behind the likes of Tampa Bay and Detroit for the time being. So we'll see if they're capable of doing it. They do not have the most favorable schedule, but we'll see what they're capable of doing this past week. 500, it is what it is. They stay put. At number 22, another team that goes 500, the same record in their last 10, staying put as well, is Seattle. They go 2-2 instead of the 1-2. They're also 6-3-1, and resultingly so, they stay in the same spot. Some tough games. They played the Jets a couple times, played the Oilers, I believe. So not the easiest opponents for the Kraken. So good to see them staying competitive in those games. It's promising for them, even if they don't make the playoffs this year, that they can stay in the fight with those guys. But hard to move a team up when you go same amount of wins and losses, unless another team is performing pretty badly or another team is performing very well and leapfrogs you. Number 21, and this is another team dropping pretty heavily. Despite only a 1-2 record, it wasn't the worst on paper, but it's New Jersey. They just cannot seem to find the momentum that they really need to grab if they want to make a run into the playoffs. They do get that win over the St. Louis Blues, which was good to see, but generally, I mean, again, don't get me wrong, wins are wins and wins are good. You want wins over the teams that you're chasing in the Metro, which they have not had much luck finding. So they need to collect some more of those Eastern Conference, specifically Metro Division games. If they can get those wins, those are the biggest ones. And last week, 1-2 was just not quite good enough to keep them where they're at. A lot of teams performing pretty well in this section of the rankings, so had to drop them a few spots to number 21. Number 20, and this is another team going 500, but they do drop 1 spot, and it is the St. Louis Blues. 2-2 on the week. They are 3-6-1 in their last 10, and their playoff hopes are pretty slowly starting to fade. They're still points wise right there in the fight, but I think a lot of the teams surrounding them are making it pretty hard. And then, of course, the 2 wildcard teams are Nashville, who's been playing unbelievably, and Vegas, who has not been playing so unbelievably, but it's Vegas, and they just acquired everyone and their mother at the trade deadline. So we'll see if they're able to catch either of those 2 teams, and if they are, whether or not they get outbid by another team. They got to pick it up if they're going to do that, though. And this week they were not able to do that, so they dropped the 1 spot from 19 to 20. Now number 19, and this is the biggest riser of the week. They're 3-0 this week, 6-2-2 in their last 10, and suddenly they are the closest team in the East to knocking out one of those 2 wildcard teams, and it is the New York Islanders. This was probably the last team I expected to make the push and be the closest one in there. I figure any of Pittsburgh, Washington, Jersey, hell, even Buffalo would probably be more likely to make it back in than the Islanders, but playing their style of hockey as they always do under Patrick Waugh, the defense is still very good. The offense has been a bit better since bringing him in as a whole. It's been on and off a bit, but trend-wise, it's been better. And then, of course, Sorokin doing Sorokin things in a lot of the games he's played lately has been a result, and the results kind of show. So we'll see if they're able to continue and try to pile drive their way into the playoffs, I guess. I don't personally want to see them there. I think they play one of the more boring brands of hockey in the entire league, but it clearly works when they do it well. So we'll see if they're able to keep it up. This week they move up a bunch of spots, that being 6 up to number 19. Now, number 18, and this team also moves up just 2 spots, though. It's the Calgary Flames. 2-1-1 on the week, 5-4-1 in their last 10. They do move on from both Noah Hanifin and from Chris Tanev, but they hang on to Jacob Markstrom, which is, I think, the biggest catalyst for whether or not they win games. So I would not say that they, after the deadline, are out of the playoff mix by any means. Points-wise, they're, of course, still right there. So we'll see what they're capable of today against the Panthers. Obviously, that's a very tough opponent, but we'll see what they can get done, if anything, in that game in hopes to stay alive in the playoffs. But this past week was good for them. And they move up a couple spots to number 18. Number 17, the last team in this half of the board, moving up 1 spot, is Minnesota. Another one of these teams in the West just scrapping it out for their playoff lives. They go 2-1-1 on the week, 5-4-1 in their last 10, just above water as far as whether or not they're 500. In kind of a similar boat to to St. Louis. I just don't know that they're going to have the juice in them to catch the likes of a Nashville or of a Vegas, but time will tell, I guess. They still got about 20 games to go, I believe. So if they're able to make that happen, would be very exciting. I thought preseason this was a team that was a surefire bet to make it into the playoffs, and here we are. So we'll see whether or not I have proven right or wrong. But for now, they stay just outside that top half of the ranking at number 17. Number 16, and this team drops 2 spots despite also going 500. Only 2 games on the week, and that is Tampa Bay. 1-1 on the week, 4-5-1 in their last 10. It's just been really on and off from these guys. They have a ton of talent. They have a guy that's supposed to be one of the better goalies in the world, and it just hasn't been clicking lately. So they're definitely in danger of falling out. I think they are probably more likely to see fallout than the Red Wings. I like the way the Red Wings have played a bit more than I like what I've seen from Tampa. But at the end of the day, if Vasi flips the switch and starts playing well, I'm going to be very wrong on that, obviously. So we'll see what happens there for the Bolts. Again, been very on and off for them. If they can figure that out, turn it around, they should be fine. But of course, they're going to make it into the first round and play one of the Rangers, the Hurricanes, or the Panthers, maybe even the Bruins. So it's going to be a tough bid if they do get in. But they are right on the cusp of it right now. Tampa Bay at number 16. 15, and this team drops 4 spots, and I'm very surprised to see this team where they're at in the standings, and that's Vegas. They go 0-3 on the week, and they're 2-7-1 in their last 10. Those are like the numbers that belong to these teams in the bottom row, not a team in the second row. I just baffled to see the way this team's playing. I know injuries are kind of getting to them, and they're having to make a lot of lineup changes, guys coming in and out pretty consistently. The trade deadline bringing in new pieces, losing some pieces. So it's a weird time, and I can appreciate that, but just really surprised to see them playing as poorly as they are. And I could not, reason myself to keeping them higher up on this ranking than where they're at. And frankly, I've wrestled with whether or not to put them above Tampa Bay, but I think for now they deserve to be just above them. We'll see whether or not that continues in the coming weeks and if their acquisitions can help them short term, because for all the additions they made, they're now in a position where they're the closest team to being eliminated from the playoffs. So they got to get that figured out, make sure they don't add all these pieces for nothing, pretty much. Number 14, and this team moves up a spot, largely thanks to Vegas dropping so much, but they did have a very good week, 2-0-1 for the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, this team hasn't played the greatest opponents, but they also beat up on Florida. So it's like, how much do you credit the one win versus the other? But in general, you can't complain for Philly. They are staying just above the line of those 2 wildcard teams. I think right now they have 74 points, and each of Detroit and Tampa have 72. So good for them in that extent, at least if a team like New Jersey, for example, catches them in the Metro, they will still have the wild card spot to fall back on as long as they stay ahead of those next teams up. So if they can continue to win at like a 600 clip, they'll probably be in pretty good shape to make the playoffs. And again, if you guys watched my video yesterday on the deadline, I kind of like that they put themselves in a position to stay in the hunt. They didn't sell off any crazy assets aside from Sean Walker. And of course, they're still kind of playing the long game. So in the fight, still building for the future. I like what Philly did and last week. All the more positive for them, 2-0-1, so they move up a spot to number 14. Number 13, and this team moves up 3 spots, 2-0-1 as well. It's the LA Kings. I just like their game a bit better right now than Philly. That's why I allowed them to move ahead of them. It was still very questionable that they did not make a move at all for a goalie. I think this is going to be a disastrous playoff run for LA, and I do think they're going to get in. But the results last week were good. Cam Talbot seems to be playing a bit better right now, but again, he's on an older set of legs, so I don't know how long we can expect that to last. Maybe he's got some good, physical therapy work going on in the back. I don't know, but it's been better for him. It's been better for LA. They've seemed to find some more fight in their game, which is something that I think was lacking there for a while. I know they had some turmoil in the locker room. Hopefully that's all been figured out. I know that's not always the easiest with a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois in there, but it's been better from them. They move up a few spots as a result to number 13. Now, number 12, and this team's another one dropping pretty dramatically, 4 spots as well for the Detroit Red Wings. They go 0-3-0 on the week, and they are still 6-4-0 in their last 10. So it's been just a rough 1 week for them. But that being said, they're in a spot where they really cannot afford to go on a stretch like this when they're now, again, the last wild card in the East. So not a good week for them. I do anticipate them bringing it back this week. But tonight, for example, they play a Vegas Golden Knights team that's going to be equally as hungry because they've been worse, but pretty similar spots. They're both the second wild card spot in their respective conferences, so both going to be very hungry for 2 points, and they do not have the easiest schedule down the stretch. So we'll see if Detroit's able to kind of right the ship starting this week early on against Vegas, and then from there continue that momentum. But this week, not a great one for them. They moved down a few spots to number 12. Number 11, and this team moves up just 2 spots, and I had a really tough time only moving them up 2 spots because 2-0-1 on the week and 9-0-1 in their last 10 for the Nashville Predators. These guys, again, all year I've been saying they're a team that I just don't love their roster on paper. I don't think they have what it takes to make it to the playoffs. I don't think UC Saros is going to be able to carry enough of the weight, and they add a little bit at the deadline. They've been playing unbelievably in the last month. They surpassed Vegas. They're now the first wild card spot instead of the second. All things going well for Nashville. They have not found a way to lose a game really in what feels like a really long time. I honestly can't recall who they lost that game to in overtime, but UC Saros has been fantastic. Tommy Novak earned himself a contract extension. That was a guy that was rumored to be on his way out the door at the deadline, has been playing really, really solid lately, gets himself in. Philip Forsberg has been unbelievable, as he's really been all year, but quieted down a bit in the middle there, and now has just ramped it right back up just in time for the playoff stretch. So really impressive stuff here from Nashville. I absolutely take this one on the chin as far as how wrong I was. This Nashville team looks very, very good. I would be very surprised to see them fall out of the playoff race unless something catastrophic happens, like a UC Saros injury that calls him out for the year. Aside from that, I would be shocked to see this team fall out because they just look so damn good right now, and I had a hard time keeping them out of the top 10. But the team directly in front of them does go 3-0 on the week, and they're 5-3-2 in their last 10. But the reason they don't move up at all from number 10, this is Dallas, of course, is because their 2 wins came over San Jose and then the Anaheim Ducks. The 2 games against the Sharks went to overtime. So, not exactly the most impressive stretch of games from Dallas. Again, you'll take 6 points in 3 games, of course, but you really don't want to be going to overtime twice with San Jose. And then I think it was a 2-goal game against the Ducks. Or no, it was a 6-2 final. What am I talking about? Either way, those 2 Sharks games in particular, you really don't want those games to be close. They were. So despite 3-0, I didn't really want to move them up too much. And again, the other teams ahead of them also performing pretty well. It was hard to validate them moving above a team like the team at number 9 who moved up 3 spots, which is Vancouver. They also went 3-0 on the week, 4-5-1 in their last 10. It's been their worst stretch of hockey despite this 3-0 stretch over the last 2-3 weeks. They of course went from number 1 to number 12 on these rankings, I think in 1 week, or 11 maybe a few weeks back. Finally kind of righting the ship. A big win yesterday against Vegas. So that's a team, again, struggling in their own right, but one of the better teams constructively on paper in the league, I think. So a good win for Vancouver. Their defense kind of leading the way there. And I think they've turned that stretch of pretty ugly hockey around and hopefully are back on the right foot headed towards the playoffs. So again, despite a 3-0 record, they don't jump dramatically. Despite a good week, they move up 3 spots to number 9. All right, into the top row, number 8, moving up just 1 spot despite a 3-1 record on the week, is Colorado. This team has looked really, really good over their last stretch. They are 7-2-1. They added a boatload of new players at the deadline, and I think they are fully geared up for what's probably going to be a deep run in the playoffs. Of course, they need to get out of one of the 2 or 3 seed. They have to finish number 1 in the division because whoever finishes 2 and 3 is going to be going like this for 7 games in the first round. It's going to be a great series. I mentioned it over and over again, whether it's Winnipeg, Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado, Dallas, Colorado, whatever it is, going to be very entertaining. But those 2 teams are going to come out of it bruised, battered, tired, whatever. And the team that finishes first is probably going to get either Vegas or Nashville, which no easy series in their own right. But I would definitely rather see Vegas or Nashville than I would see Dallas, Colorado, or Winnipeg. So we'll see what happens there. The Avs look really good. They have to catch up to both Dallas and the Jets. They still sit third as of today. We'll see if they're capable of doing that. 3-1 definitely helps, but each of Dallas and Winnipeg, of course, playing pretty well right now also. So we'll see if they can make some moves to catch them. 3-1 definitely does help that. They move up 1 spot to number 8. Now, number 7, not the best week for them, but not the worst. They go 2-1-1. They're 5-1-4 in their last 10, so points in 9 of their last 10. That's the Boston Bruins, but wins and losses wise, it's 5-5 in their last 10. So, again, not the best, not the worst from them. They've been kind of just like humming along since maybe December, it feels like they have not by any means been the best team in the league over the latter half of the year, but they're doing more than enough to keep themselves in the mix for one of those top teams. They've never really had a week that's made me want to like really drop them like a team like Vancouver has, Dallas has, Vegas obviously has. So been pretty consistent from them. They don't make any big additions at the deadline, which I don't love for their sake in the playoffs, but we'll see what happens. For now, again, they're doing just fine. They move down one spot to number 7. Number 6, and this team also drops a spot. Most of these teams are dropping because one team in particular had a very good week, and I could not keep them out of the top few. So number 6 dropping a spot. They are only 500 on the week, but it's Toronto, 7-3-0 in their last 10. Again, nothing wrong with the week they had, I don't think. 2 back-to-back losses to Boston is never going to be a Leafs fans' favorite thing to hear, but Boston, of course, still a pretty solid team in their own right. So again, nothing inherently like crazy wrong with the Leafs week. You'd like one of those 2 wins against Boston, of course, but very likely that they're just going to finish with the 3 seed in the Atlantic. I don't think they really want that because that, of course, does not give home ice advantage, and you're going to take on one of Florida or Boston. But nonetheless, it's better than being in a wild card spot, which the Leafs will take. Number 5, another team dropping one spot despite not the worst week. It's definitely the worst week of these 3 teams, but didn't want to drop them too much because they only played 2 games and they're still 7-2-1 in their last 10. That's the New York Rangers. They go 0-1-1 on the week. Again, not winning any games does not help you by any means. They're, of course, going to drop if they don't get a win, especially in this part of the board. But really, the main reason they drop is because the team at number 4 has been tearing it up lately. And that week, or last week, continued that. At number 4 is the Winnipeg Jets. And again, I mentioned the Central Division, those top 3 teams all playing pretty well. It's very hard for number 3 and number 2, that being Colorado and Dallas, to catch Winnipeg when they're all winning in the same pace. So Winnipeg stays ahead. They're 3-1 on the week, 7-3-0 in their last 10. And again, Colorado went 3-1, Dallas went 3-0. So you guys can all do math. Each of those teams got 3 wins. No one changes seedings. So as of right now, it would be Dallas and Colorado in that first round. Winnipeg has to continue winning so that they avoid that scenario. Because again, those 2-3 seed games are going to be brutal. They're going to be physical. They're going to be hard. And the team that comes out of that series alive is going to be tired. So good stuff from the Jets, staying ahead of the pack there. As a result of that, they move up 3 spots to number 4. Number 3, and this team goes just 1-1 on the week. Again, not really trying to punish them too much for only a 2-game week, but I feel like the team at number 2 deserved to move up just because they won 3 of their 4 games this week. So at number 3, moving down 1 spot is Carolina. I still think this team is fine. They looked really good, and of course they made some big name adds at the deadline in Jake Guentzel and Evgeny Kuznetsov. So we'll see what that means for their stretch run into the playoffs. They're definitely capable of catching the Rangers. They're only, I think, 4 points back of them. So we'll see if that's something they're able to do. Similar boat here. I don't think you want Philly if you're the Hurricanes. They're going to be a hard team to play against. Torts has more than a handful of playoff experience, and he's going to make that Philly team very, very hard to play against. It's going to be physical games, much like the 2-3 games in the Central are. Maybe not the same level of skill. There's definitely some disparity between the Rangers and Canes and Philadelphia, whoever gets that matchup. But not going to be fun games by any means. So we'll see if they can catch the Rangers again. It wasn't a bad week for them. I just think the team at number 2 with a 3-1 record on the week deserves to jump ahead of Carolina. And that, of course, is the Edmonton Oilers. Again, 3-1 last week, 6-3-1 in their last 10. Some big wins. They're looking to catch maybe Vancouver. I really doubt they're going to find a way to do that. But as of now, they're still second in the Pacific. I would be shocked if they catch this Canucks team. The Canucks, I think, have an 11-point lead on them right now or something like that. It would take a really, really bad stretch down to the playoffs for Vancouver and a very good stretch from Edmonton for that to happen. We know Edmonton's capable of the very bad stretch. We just don't know. I don't think Vancouver is going to lose that many games down the line. I could be wrong, but they're already at 90 points. I don't think Edmonton's going to be able to do it, but if they can, kudos to them. Nonetheless, they've been very good. 3-1, 6-3-1 in their last 10. Hard to deny this team right now. They move up 1 spot to number 2, but at number 1, same deal. 3-1 on the week, 8-2-0 in their last 10. It's the Florida Panthers once again. This team just looks so dialed in. They make a couple quiet, nice moves for the playoff run for them. Pozo and Tarasenko, some depth adds that provide both some physicality and some scoring. So good stuff all in all for the Panthers. And of course, they've been playing great hockey. Both Stolarz and Bobrovsky look very good right now. The scoring from all their big guys continues to be dominant. The defense is very hard to play against. All pretty big guys that play a strong 200-foot game, or I guess 160 or so foot game, right? But just hard team to play against. I do not want to line up against this team in round 1 if I'm a team like the Leafs. So they're praying probably that they get Boston, which is hilarious because of the history between those 2 teams. But I just don't think any team wants this Panthers team in round 1. So So that's it for this week of rankings. Again, the first one after the NHL trade deadline. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Again, let me know what you guys think about the trades that went down yesterday and over the last week or so. Let me know how you think your team's going to fare headed into the playoffs. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe as well if you don't mind. It is free, and we will talk to you guys tonight for a recap of like 13 or so games post-deadline, and we'll see what happens for all these teams over the next week. Thanks, as always, for watching. We'll catch up with you guys soon.